Another Friday night, Greg.
Hey, here we are. How you doing?
Yeah, I practiced that disclaimer 3 or 4 times, and I was perfect here at home doing that. And then I got nervous reading that. But it's going to be implemented in our videos in the future, and I'll have a voice recording for that. But yeah, we do have an opinion. Disclaimer now.
It is not. Listen, it is not the opinion of or the position or practice of the Manifest Network, but it might be Ghost Inspector Greg. I can't.
I like your spirit fingers. So, Greg, how have you been this week? Anything going on? Any other gravesite investigations?
Well, and we got to hang on to that Mickey Rooney, but I am going to go back, and I could even go back next week. In fact, I think I will. I think I'm going to go back, and I think I am going to go to just a couple other stars that are around there for, and see what I get. I'm 100%. So, I am the ghost. I'm the celebrity ghost whisperer now. So anyway, but heck, I'm 100%. When you got Burt Reynolds tell you his favorite movie is Bandit. Holy smokes. Yeah. So, but anyway, I've got an investigation coming up. It's kind of a little bit top secret. It's with somebody who is a legend. Asked me to help him out, and it's going to be a
legend.
Oh yes, I can say it's going to be at a firehouse, and I can say that it was built over a hanging tree, a town's old hanging tree, and they got a lot of activities in that place, and all the firefighters are experiencing things. So we're going to go out there and find out what might be going on.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, but yeah, everything's good in the ghost world. So.
That's awesome. Well, I've had a pretty good week here too, and I'm doing some upgrades and things. And I have an announcement tonight, and I do not have the logo for it yet, but I'm really super excited to say that What the Frick Live is also going to be very active on Josh Who TV. It's a free speech platform that I am a big proponent of free speech. You all, if you follow me, I say this. I do this a lot on all my, I don't care if I disagree with you or not. You have a right to say what you want to say. And so I'm a big free speech person. So we will be on Manifest Network because I love everybody here. But we're going to be starting hopefully in June on the Josh Who TV. And I'll be advertising that a lot more when it's closer to time, and I'm setting all that stuff up now, and I'm very super excited about that. So if you don't know who Josh Who TV is, please just Google it yourself. You can sign up for free, and I highly encourage everybody to do that because I think these social media platforms are changing, and it's a really great avenue to use. He also disperses our shows out to all kinds of other networks too that are free speech. So I'm really excited, but I'm also really excited because we have a guest on tonight named Houston. We got a problem. I know. I would have said that in grade school if I went to school with him, but he is super intelligent, someone that recently too, I look up to very much. He's very knowledgeable in all areas of, I'll say reptilians, aliens, ghosts, and demons. He has the Paranormal Truth and Reality, PTAR radio show. And that you can find that on the bbsradio.com. He is also a writer and author of the marketing Mentalist, Haunted States, Remove. Hold on. My computer just went. It says Haunted History 2019. He's a marketing guru at CRS Marketing Solutions and Securities, founder of the training worldwide, the 12 Steps to Success. He is absolutely awesome. I've listened to him on several podcast this recently, and then I've researched him. We're going to bring him to the show right now. We got Mr. Chris Houston, and hold on, let me unmute you. There we go. That's great. Thank you.
Move over here a little bit.
I'm sorry. I feel like every single time I do this, I talk so fast, and I feel like I'm like a what's auctioneer.
You did good. You did good. You did fine.
And of course, with Facebook, it started swirling when I started talking about your background. So thank you, Chris. And speaking of backgrounds, for those that are watching and viewing tonight, thank you so much. Please like, share, and follow Manifest Network. If you're watching YouTube, please give us a thumbs up. Ring that bell is what my son would say. And we appreciate you. Please be active in this. Ask questions. We'll try to bring this up. And we truly appreciate that. So for those that don't know who you are, Chris, can you just go in a little bit and tell us how you got involved with paranormal and all things that are strange?
That is a hard thing to get into. I had a paranormal experience when I was 6 years old. It ran until I was 22 years old at a location up here. It was very, very drastic. I went through all the channels everybody does when you run into a situation like this. I went to see the psychologist. Unique story there, by the way. The psychiatrist ran out of my home, said, "You don't need me, you need a priest." But that's a whole other story. And they eventually ended up meeting with a lady that was fairly famous. I never mentioned her name because I never got permission for it. She never came into my home. But I'll never forget that day either, because at this point I'd been tormented, I'd been bruised, I'd been attacked multiple times. Most of my friends would not come into the home unless there were at least 6 or 7 people in the house. I had to live in the house.
Wow.
My father had passed away in the house to boot because it was a family-owned home. But when she came to the home, I had the front door open, I had the windows open. She went to walk up to the door, and the front door slammed, the window slammed, and she put her hand on the door and walked back and said, "Honey, I can't go into that house. Whatever's in there doesn't want me in there. This is your fight. We can tell you how to do it. We can teach you how to do it. But ultimately, you're the one that's in control here, and you're going to have to learn how to deal with this." So I eventually did. And at that point, I had always had in the back of my head, excuse the term when I say this, but what the hell is all this? Where did it come from?
Yeah.
So I went around talking to cultures. I went around talking to professors, scientists throughout the years, on and off during different phases of my life, so to speak, and ran on this incredibly crazy journey that has got me a lot of knowledge, and a lot of friends, but it's also still right where it landed in a lot of places going, I don't know.
I think that's how we all are. I don't know. It just happened. I don't know. There's that song too out there. It's like, I don't know. I can't remember that song. I'll post a link when I find it on here, because everybody knows I'm Pisces and I love music. So Greg, any follow-up from that?
I don't know that song either. So
okay, I'm gonna have to post it.
Hey, so Chris, it's interesting because I have a similar background. It all started in my youth. And amazing experiences that me and my friends who also experience this stuff talk about still today. And so my question for you, because for me there was a gap. Okay, I was more focused on cryptids and things like that. And just so you know, I investigated Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum with the Ghost Adventures team, and that really kind of enlightened a lot of things with me. And even though all along the way I'd always been doing investigations, and it was intrigued by it, but that really enlightened me to a lot of things. But my question to you, just off the bat, is at what point in your youth were you having confrontations or communications with things that are unworldly?
It started when I was 6 years old. I moved into a local residence. And before that, the only thing that you actually saw, my dad was a UFO fanatic. So you'd see the UFO specials that came out once every year or 2 years on TV. He was friends with several astronauts that he had met along the way. My dad was an audio engineer, guys. So his whole life he spent in audio and video. So he got a chance to meet specific people. But then when we moved into a small local farmhouse, I started to notice things. The night we were there, things started happening. And then it just progressed slow over time to a point to where you just couldn't deny it anymore. I had no idea that wasn't just me that was seeing a lot of this stuff, me or my family, because my sister had seen a couple of things, but then she kind of put it in the back of her head, and when she got old enough, got out of the house as quick as possible. My mother was going through some psychological issues that I now believe was from this house. And slowly but surely, it just started progressing further and further and further and further. And as it progressed, of course, so did some of the situations that I ran into, from witnessing specific things to, I guess, an eye-opening experience somewhere along the line. It's strange because everybody says their eyes are open to the paranormal, but when that hits, when you finally realize that there's something in front of you, nobody's ever going to explain it, no matter what you do.
Yeah.
But not only is it not in front of you, but it's making things float and fly. It's doing all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yep. Exactly.
Your eyes open up, and then all of a sudden, for that next week, you're looking around and you're going, the colors are different, and you're thinking, is everything that I ever watched on TV real? Is everything I ever read real? What's right? What's wrong? I don't know anymore. All I know is I've got this situation to deal with. So I dug in the dirt, I guess, for the next 20 or 30 years to try to find out what was real and what wasn't real, and what could be explained, what couldn't be explained, and took it from there.
I know you kind of had hit on that at the start, so I kind of was being a little bit redundant, but I just wanted to draw a little more out about from you about your youth and the things that had happened at that point. Like I said, I've got a very similar situation, and so as far as when you first felt like you had a communication, tell me about something like that.
I don't really. The first time I ran into this thing, I hate to call it a communication, because it was more of a, I'm going to scare the piss out of you and see what you do. It originally developed in the image of and everybody hears these stories over and over and over again. When I gave my story, because I didn't want to be on TV, I didn't want to talk about it for years. I'd give the story to anybody who asked. It ended up advancing into all kinds of other things where I watch a show every now and then and go, hey, I know where that came from. But it started with a little boy, a little white-skinned boy with a red parka. He showed up outside about in the middle of a cornfield when it had just been harvested, and slowly came closer and closer and closer. And then the effects in the house were with my family at first more than me. My sister had seen some crazy things, claimed there was a man in the closet. My mother moved into that room and claimed the man was in the closet, standing outside in the cornfield all the time, waving at her. And eventually it ended up confronting me, because I'm a blunt guy. I know. Everybody's going to say, don't provoke the ghost. You probably don't want to be around me then, because if done properly, it'll get resolved. If done improperly, it's dangerous on you. But I've always been a blunt guy, so eventually this thing and we just kind of knocked heads, I guess you could say.
Well, so I have a similar experience too. I think a lot of paranormal investigators grow up in a haunted home, actually. Sometimes I hear it so often that I wish I had something a little bit more exciting to tell them. But that's one of the first questions they ask me on shows that I'm a guest on, is like, how did you get involved? Well, I grew up in a haunted house. And things, but your haunted house, Chris, and we're going to talk about reptilians and stuff too in the latter half of this show. But your haunted house, though, we were talking before the show was starting, that it's a little bit more territorial than just your home, right?
Yes, I didn't know that.
It deals with Ohio.
It deals with Ohio, and it has a very
that explains all these Ohioans.
Specific MO. I mean, literally a very specific MO. It does things in a very specific way. It oppresses people in a very specific way. And I hate to use the word demon. I mean, it could or couldn't be. I don't know that, to be honest with you. I know what its name is. It took almost 11 years for that to happen. But and I never repeat that name. Now, I did my own research on all of this during this period of time, actually. I've been in touch with the Roman Catholic Church in Rome. I spoke to real demonologists. I spoke to real people throughout the theology world and so forth. So I know this thing is real. Why it's here in Ohio, I have no idea, but it is specific to Ohio for some reason. It only spends its time in this state.
So with that, spending time in that state, and you grew up in that home, have you found it in other locations that you investigate?
Yes.
And how do you know, what kind of evidence do you gather that you know it's in fact that's the same entity?
The only way that I know it is because it knows me and I know it. So it will confront it. It will physically confront me. It'll carry on conversations about how it toyed with me as a child. And
wow.
There'll be multiple witnesses running around here that'll be like, oh my God, is this really going on? Is he really talking to something? And if they ask a question, it'll tell them, you know, how did you meet Chris? Oh, I met him when he was a boy. And it'll explain situations that only it and I know about. Mm-hmm. And then eventually, I think I told you guys that eventually, while you're watching this process, because we all know how things go. If you have one spirit box, you can explain it. If you have 2 spirit boxes, it's a little less explainable. You have 3 spirit boxes and a couple other tools, and this thing starts manipulating all those tools and jumping around and so forth. And people are going, oh my God, what's going on here? I've had many people just kind of stop and get stumped and go, I have no idea what I'm watching, but this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. And to me, it's normal life. This is not the only entity or thing that I've dealt with throughout the years that will talk to me. It's just you have to know how to talk to them. Some of them aren't good. Some of them are just, I think, people that are stuck or past memories. I'm not quite sure what to explain on. I can give you the science on it, but sometimes the science doesn't add up. Sometimes the science adds up perfect. You know, like, okay, that makes sense. But then other times it runs into a you just gotta do it out of faith, I guess you could say.
Well, I think it's because it's a Buckeye fan. Okay, that's what. But Chris, seriously though,
sorry,
you are
that's funny.
you hit the nail on the head though, in the sense that
my collar all screwed up here.
You look fine.
You look fantastic.
Yes, you're fine.
You hit the nail on the head in the sense that the communication, they're able to identify you, and you know that it's the same. You know it's the same entity, just by communication. I've experienced the same thing, and so that's really amazing. Could you elaborate on the communications that you would have between those 3 devices?
Well, I've always been a big one on multiple devices in multiple different ways, just to correlate from one device to another. Because scientifically speaking, a lot of the devices that are out there, and I've got a handful that I can't, but a lot of the devices that are out there can be explained. They can be put to the test. They can be broke down. That doesn't mean these devices don't work, guys. The inventors that work with these devices, they create them and they do work. It's just sometimes they don't work exactly the way we think they work, and scientifically you can explain it. But when you're taking 3 or 4 different devices and putting them in correlation with each other, and you've got a specific thing that's jumping from place to place to place, and it's also communicating using the same voice, the same words, the same situation, it becomes a little bit more going, I have no idea exactly how that's going on. And I know if anybody's scientific, the first thing they're going to say is the same thing I learned in electronics and radio and audio. Well, you do know that a radio station can be picked up on multiple radios, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. However, can that radio station carry on a full conversation with you, as if we were in the same room doing what we're doing right now? And that's
how can it if it sweeps through so many channels?
Well, and just like the old days with EVP, that's what you look for. You look for that conversation. Electronic voice phenomenon is fascinating, but if you're just getting 1 or 2 words when you're in a Faraday cage, and I encourage people, if you're going to use an EVP recorder, build yourself a Faraday cage, because science can't be explained at that point. But let's say you're in that Faraday cage, which I've had the privilege of doing. You're playing that recorder and you're hitting record and you're asking questions, and now that you're not only getting questions, you're getting full statements. They're telling you what your grandmother's name was, when she died, and what favorite shirt she liked that you were wearing, and you haven't had that
Familiar
shirt.
Spirit.
It's a crazy experience.
Yeah, I know.
So I know you're a little bit you're knowledgeable in demonology, and I made that as one of the hashtags because obviously demons has been a big, huge thing on TV for the last couple of years. But I take it as a serious issue, and when we're talking about this entity that you grew up with in Ohio, I feel like there's a hierarchy in demons, and they own territories.
There is.
And so, is this something that you feel like is, since you say it's Ohio, do you think this is something that has held captive or held that state in a lot of areas? Do you think this is a stronger, if I don't want to say demonic, because I don't think you've labeled it as that, but is this something that claims property?
It's here with purpose. I don't think it's claiming more than defending, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Because I've ran into that again before. Now, here in Ohio, I haven't had the chance to, I've done a lot of research here, but I haven't had the chance to orient exactly what it's here for. But it's not the only type of entity that does this. Wisconsin has an entity that does it, that's actually guarding a particular area that I've been to. I think I'm in contact with somebody that believes that Florida has another one of these key points. There's a lot of things people don't know about, and I hate to use the word demonologist, because reality is here in the United States of America, there are no registered demonologists. There's two that come and go from other countries.
But what qualifies? The
qualifies as a demonologist is what I want to know. Yeah,
here's the thing.
A $50 certificate, $40, $50 certificate that you can buy online. Sorry, you got to start it.
Well, and
it's not a demonologist.
I always get people started on that. The funny thing is, demonology is when it's the study of the word demon, and where it relates in theology, and where it relates in books, and where it relates in history. It's no different than bibliology. It's no different than angelology. It's no different than the rest of it. Now, the Roman Catholic Church understands this, and I've had the privilege of talking to them, and they've explained this to me. But when people take that claim, I'm a demonologist, really, how exactly did you become a demonologist? Because
$50 on the internet.
In their defense, there are a lot of people that, they study a lot of stuff, and a lot of it might be baloney that they're studying, but they're studying a lot of stuff. They're gaining names, they're gaining histories, they're gaining a lot of those things.
I spent a lifetime now into many things. I wish I didn't have packed up. I'd show you a couple of them. But many things, many different texts, many different languages. Some of them I can't even read. I have to go to other people. And to have access to all kinds of different books and all kinds of different things that all revolve around that word, demon. Technically, you could say I'm a demonologist, but I'm not. I spent a lot of time researching this and looking into it and spending time asking those people in Rome and other areas that have dedicated their life to looking into this stuff. If you could tell me, if I say, how do you claim you're a demonologist? Say, well, I spent the past 20 years in the Roman Catholic Church in Rome looking at ancient texts and stuff, I'd be like, oh, okay, well, you know what you're talking about. But
well, I will tell you this really quickly. I went to Bible college. It's accredited school. And sorry, Selena, I'm typing and talking at the same time. I hope I didn't say your name wrong. She says, hi, Emily. So Selena's watching. Thank you, Selena. So I went to Freedom Bible College and Seminary. It's accredited school. And I graduated with a bachelor's and master's in education and Christian education and minor in theology. But we had a demonology section or spiritual warfare. And I took 3 classes in spiritual warfare, but they went more concentrated. It wasn't a degree. It was an understudy. But these people had to go through 2 years of kind of like an internship and be at funerals and be in hospitals. It's kind of like a minister's license too. That's you can also buy online at $40, but they had to go through and do all these different spiritual attacks and I don't know what you want to call it, but it was a task. And I actually seen people drop out of it because it was so hard and tough, and it wasn't like how they thought it was going to be.
Spiritual warfare has been a study in most churches for a number of years. I think that people don't classify the difference quite differently. It's kind of like the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church takes demonology very seriously, very seriously. And when you get on Roman soil, they will tell you that it's one of their studies, and those studies, only a very handful, small amount, get into exorcism. The goal is that there's a bunch of people that study the word demon, read the old text, relate it back and forth, understand the differences, understand what could relate, what couldn't relate. And there are a lot of things that can. Images, stories. I mean, culture goes back thousands and thousands of years. And
absolutely.
And all of that at one point or another has had something good and something bad written on pages. So I think there just needs to be more definition. It's not out there fighting demons. There is spiritual warfare that happens.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a difference between oppression and possession.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so a lot of the residential cases I deals with a lot of oppression.
A lot of people don't understand that there are forms of oppression too. It's funny because you can always figure out who's actually worked with those type, I'll just say those type of cases. Work with those type of cases, because if you stand in front of them and somebody says, I'm a demonologist, I'm this, I'm that, just ask them one question. What are the 6 steps of oppression?
I don't even know those. So, but I've stood in with some possession cases and I've witnessed some deliverance. I have, but I don't even know those. Go ahead, Greg. I think you want to say, we have a question as one of our viewers, but I was going to see if Greg has something before I ask this.
No, let's get that.
Okay. All right. We have Olivia is watching. So thank you, Olivia. May I ask if you've studied the cases by Lorraine and Ed Warren? They basically mentored me when I was younger in the paranormal. I put my faith in the way they conducted their investigations and helping people, especially in the demonic cases.
I have. Yeah, I've studied. In fact, I've had the great privilege of meeting both of them at one point. I think they're highly misunderstood. People either like them or don't like them. Being an individual that had a great privilege of talking to Lorraine for quite a period of time, she was a delightful lady. Do I think that they had everything right, especially with Ed's teachings and Ed's views? No, I don't think they had it all right. But then again, I also don't think everybody has it right. There are these bits and pieces that are from everywhere, and each one of them link, and it becomes very complicated. But I think they were delightful people. I think, like everything else, press and TV and all the other stuff got a hold of them at one point or another, and then you have an image that's not you. But I respect them quite dearly.
So, yeah, good, knowledgeable people. I mean, the absolute, legends, pioneers, and that's awesome. So I did want to say one thing, or actually, we
do this every week.
If I could get Gwen wants a message, okay? People of Earth. It is time to talk about reptilians.
Yes.
All right.
Speaking of demons, I'm going to tell you this, Chris, really quick. I'm going to make the story fast because this is about you, and I want to see what you think. I was 18 years old. I was an altar care minister. I was watching this guy come to the altar every week at my church. This is how I think I was introduced to reptilians. I did not connect this until this past year. I seen this guy move, and when he moved, he kind of had a hologram thing with it, and it was I explained, this is at my church. I explained to them that I saw this move with them, with this guy. It was a hologram, but it looked like a frog standing up on his hind legs, and it had like a mouth of a frog. He would feed off the women off the altar. That happened for several weeks. He had a demon. He got delivered. He still goes to my church. You would never even know about it. So when I started into this reptilian stuff this past year, COVID-19, 2020 was my great awakening. And then 2021 has made me think that everything's an illusion. I was not one of these shapeshifter people. I was not one of these reptilian people, but God kept putting in my head back to when I was 18 years old. And that's 22 years ago that I saw that. And I think that was a glimpse of something that was reptilian. It looked like a frog, a reptilian. I called it a horny toad because of of some of the attachments he had with him. But the guy got delivered, but they had me come back there to pray over him. When I walked in that room, he's a man, but he was talking like a female. And I said, nope, I'm out. And then they told me he had some attachment with pornography and all this kind of stuff, which makes sense to me, that when the women would pray with women, men would pray with men, still to this day. So when the women were coming off the altar and things, he would hug the women. He didn't hug the men, but he's totally different person now. He got delivered, set free. So this reptilian thing that's going on, because we're seeing more and more of it. We're seeing these shapeshifters. I actually saw one myself on a news show. I saw his eyes change. It was on Newsmax, and it was Graham, the Graham guy, the senator or whatever.
Lindsey?
And Lindsey Graham's eyes changed so much so the news anchor said, man, his eyes looked weird. I cannot find that video anywhere. And that's what made me start looking into this. That happened this past June on Newsmax. And the news anchor even said his eyes, it looked like a lizard. So, Chris, what do you know about the lizard people?
Well, what I'm going to, that's strange. My button coming loose here. What I'm going to cover is
Isn't that kind of show?
a little bit different than what most people would cover. I never talk about this, but I am talking about this now because of what happened within the past 2 years. Part of my job throughout the years as a contractor in marketing and business and business association and so forth was working with the United States of America, was working with the government. Now, we won't get into a lot of that, but there's a lot of things that I learned in that process because a part of my job was to work in the word misinformation. Now, I had related this many, many times throughout the years on how that works in the UFO world, because I've had the privilege of talking to a gentleman named David, another gentleman named John, and a couple other people that have worked in the misinformation world for the CIA, the FBI, and the DOD for years. They would literally come into these conferences and they pick top people that were very well known, and they plant them information and they feed them information, false and negative, and they create a whole persona of things that made a all the way up until now, and a whole existence of people believe in things that aren't quite exactly what they are. My job was a lot smaller than that. I was designed for social media, emails, and so forth. And I did work on misinformation campaigns through social media throughout the past 2.5 years. In fact, I'm going to out some of that if I'm not shot, but that's a whole other story. if I'm shot or disappeared, you guys know this. You know why, but that's a whole other story. But misinformation has been a tool of the United States of America, particularly the Air Force and the Department of Defense, for almost 43 years. A part of that are these different alien races, reptilians, and some of the things that people think are 100% real. Now, that's not to say that there aren't connections, okay? There are connections, just not quite what people think. And I wish I could get into more detail about that. Some of it I'm privy to, a lot of it I'm not privy to. But when you're dealing with different races like reptilians, grays, and I think there's 16 of them now, it's funny because the government will feed you what's called tidbits, okay? The best way to get you to believe something is I'm going to give you a very small piece of the truth that you can find. Then I'm going to make up the rest of it. You're going to go on this wild goose chase, and you're never going to know that I'm tinkering around way over here in some base in the edge of New Mexico or so forth. So do I believe reptilians are 100% real? Yes, I believe that the idealism is real. I don't believe they're real. But the human mind is strange because we can program ourselves to believe all kinds of things. And if we see something that's unusual and then we relate it to stories of other people somewhere along the line that have seen it, we now make it 100% real. So I would say the best way to dig into that more, Emily, is to really start digging into.
Well, they come out kind of bold, especially in Russia and other countries now, foreign countries, because we have some news anchors even saying that they are reptilian and they are shapeshifters, and they've even recorded their eyes and stuff changing. I don't know how true that is because everything is with video, how you can manipulate stuff. But
well, that's the thing.
Do they just want attention or not? But I'll just tell you this: the Lindsey Graham show I watched on Newsmax, and people are saying they've seen it too, and it's been banned. His eyes changed, and they were spooky. And I don't watch mainstream news media. I have not watched it since Obama got a second term. Everything I do, I study on my own, and that's all I can say to everyone. Please just look these topics up, study yourself, and find different avenues to find your answer. But that, and then I keep going back to what I saw when I was 18. It's just, and then that goes into the Nephilim, and biblical stuff.
To me, biblical and the other half are two different things. But I'll tell you honestly, biblically speaking, there are a lot of things going on between good and evil right now. God and the devil, whatever you want to call him. I call him God, but other people call him something else. And I'm 100% faith driven. In fact, everything that I ever do is by the guidance of God. He tells me what to do and where to go. I don't do any of that. And but that's a whole other story, I guess.
Yeah, that might be on another show, or we don't have to be so.
I would say ask yourself
sensitive
this question if you don't believe in aliens. And I had a gentleman, great guy. I never mention names because I never know if I'm allowed to or not. But he's written several books. He actually worked on the X-Files. You guys probably know him anyway. But I had the privilege of interviewing him about 9 years ago, and then spent some time talking to him on the air and off the air afterwards. And he said, you got to ask yourself this: if you don't believe in aliens, GPS Antarctica, GPS the base that's in Antarctica, zoom in on it, and then notice that one area is blacked out. Now, do your research on your own to find out what that area is. All of us that have been in it for years, then you guys probably even know what I'm talking about there. But this particular area has a history all the way from the Nazi Germany all the way up until now. But they say it's a scientific research base, okay? And now, that's fine, but ask yourself this: why does a scientific research base need 13 well-armed aircraft carriers from across the world flag with different flags? Why does a scientific research base need, at any given time, what you can view, which is, and he said in his files, it was very clear that they had roughly about 2,000 to 3,000 troops from all across the world, from different nations, from China, from Russia, from America, and so forth, all in a scientific research base. Why would you be that well armed in an area out in Timbuktu if
in Antarctica?
In Antarctica, if you weren't looking for something else. Now, ironically, when you do your research on this, guys, when you start digging, this particular area is an area that has claimed that they actually spotted aliens under the ice, and that there was actually a full community of aliens and ancient artifacts and so forth under the ice, and that they can't explain all of that. So there you go. There's why the scientific research base is there. They don't know what's there, but they know they ran across something.
Well, it's kind of like the waters. It's kind of like the oceans, the deep oceans. We don't know what's there either.
So, and I do believe that we've been visited before. I think if you get into history, there's no denying that.
Yeah. So I probably I want to ask you a question, because I feel like I know the answer, but I want to ask you the question. What do you think that they are? Okay, first of all, and where do you think that they come from? And we'll talk specifically. Let's talk specifically reptilians.
I was going to say which one, reptilians or?
That's our topic. Even though there's the tall Norsemen, and there's the grays, there's the tall grays, the short grays. There's lots of them. But
well, I'm more of a theologist and a more history buff. So let's take 5 steps back and let's look at the history here. In my personal opinion, and it would be great to write a book about. Hopefully, somewhere along the line, I write a book about that. In my personal opinion, the Earth was more substantial than you or I or anybody else ever knew about. And way before we were in existence, there was also a bunch of other races that are out there, and they were at war with themselves. Most of these races probably don't even exist anymore. They might have even knocked themselves out of existence. But in that process, they visited us from all shapes and forms and so forth. And if you start researching the hieroglyphs, and you start looking into the histories, and you start really digging in and talking to historians and archaeologists and so forth, you see things at locations, or they send you by email or so forth that, by God, it looks like it's an alien. It explains it as an alien. It shows it as an alien. There's no other way to discuss it. So I think a lot of these gods that you saw in Egypt and North Sea gods and so forth, I think a lot of these old histories, I think they're aliens. There's no other way around it.
And Chris, I'm not going to doubt you. I don't doubt what you're saying at all. I believe that all of those things are accurate and are true. But the question I still have is, what are they? And I'll tell you what I think that they are. Okay, I think it's a demonic deception. I'm just going to come straight out and let you know what I think it is. And that deception is very powerful and can create whatever.
It can be a tool. It could very easily be a tool. Because the thing about demons is demons work differently than what most people think. I know everybody likes to think it's a TV version where the guy working at McDonald's gets possessed one day and you can't explain it. But what would a demon want with the guy at McDonald's? Though that does happen, that happens rarer than most people think because they have their own agenda. This war has been going on for centuries, whatever it is. And that agenda could very easily utilize a tool like what you saw on TV to manipulate the world, or a tool to even abduct somebody. It could easily be a demonic thing, which brings you back to what are demons. We really have no idea what angels and demons are. We have really no idea who God is. Not that I question him, I don't. We have no idea.
I have an idea. I do have an idea, but that's too much to go into tonight.
Yeah, that's another topic, for sure.
But I don't know. The reptilians, I heard you talk about them on a podcast and everything. So about this. So do you honestly believe in these because another word for them is shapeshifters. Do you believe in that term and that people can do that?
Yes.
Chris. Okay.
Yes. I've actually experienced it. I won't get into detail about that. I've actually
come on now. I ran into you got to tell us a little bit about it. No names, anything.
When you start spending time with the Navajo Nation and the Indian nations, you find out that they believe very, 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 very deeply in skinwalkers and shapeshifters. And I had the great privilege of spending a year and a half on a reservation on and off with a chief. It took me years to get there because they're a very enclosed society. If you don't come from Navajo blood,
right?
Yeah, you just don't spend time with them. So I had to earn their trust. And I believe in shapeshifters. I believe in them. I had an experience as a kid a long time ago on what I believe was a werewolf of sorts. And that's what piqued my curiosity years later. I can tell you that story. And I can tell you a little bit about the Navajo Nation, but that story is unique. When I was a kid, I was the same kid everybody else was. I had long hair. I drank beer. I did stupid crap. We all do it, right?
Yeah.
We were coming home. We were coming home from a bar, a friend of mine, when we were 18 or 19 years old. And my house is on a rural road. So when you're going down the hill, you've got nothing but trees at this point. It's changed since then, but you've got nothing but trees and rivers. You got a property way off to the left, which is this lady that stays to herself. And nobody really knows her. They say she's spooky. But we're walking through there and I heard this thump, 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 and it got louder. And there's a creek in between the road and us. And I watched the water from the creek. I remember watching the water first. I looked at all the water from the creek shoot up and I heard this loud kaboom. Then I look over directly and I see these two big, disgustingly awful, scary eyes, this long snout, slobber coming off, these large fangs. To be honest with you, it looked exactly like a werewolf from the books. And he's crouched over, he had his legs up, he was growling at me. I turned to my friend because I was astounded there, just sitting there for a minute. And it could have been less than a minute. Time just kind of stopped because you're like, what the hell are you looking at here? I looked over to my friend and said, did you see that? And he's already shooting down the road as fast as he can run. So I took off running and you could hear this thing running after us. And we got into the house and you could hear growls outside by the woods near me for hours. In fact, my dad got the shotgun out and said, okay, I think there's a bear out there. But it didn't resemble a bear. So I went back the next day. I'm like, I'm curious on this. And you could see a path that was torn apart, the trees, big trees. I'm talking trees this big around, broken. You could see where the water, because it was kind of a drift water, you know how these rivers kind of dry out, these little small rivers. It was a drift water, so the water had all moved, and you could see where something had literally slammed into the ground and got up out of the grass and knocked it down. And I remember standing there, and I was looking, and I went further, and I went across, and I followed it for a little while to the edge of this lady's property, and she ran out immediately and just kept screaming, "Go away, go away, go away, leave. He's going to know you're here. Leave. Don't ever come back. He's going to know you're here." And I left it at that because, of course, obviously I was 19 years old. So you're like, okay, screw this, I'm gone. But after that, it piqued my interest a little bit. So I believe in shapeshifters. I believe that they're there. Now, what they are, I don't know, but they exist.
Well, Gwen up there says it was probably the dog man. Now, where were you when that happened?
Marengo, Ohio. Huh. If you do your research, guys, you'll find out that 3 weeks after this, Marengo, Ohio, and the surrounding areas of Ohio was actually in the whole dog man lore for a little while.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, and her last name was Pridemore. Not Denise Pridemore, but another Pridemore.
Not Doretha. I know Doretha Pridemore that does a podcast.
Yeah, I don't think she does podcasting now, but her and Steven, she had just adopted her little girl's child. She adopted her because the little girl was dealing with some drug issues and a few other things, and they were about to leave, and they were pulling a car out, and this large monster-like doggish, wolfish creature came out that was the size of a human being, and she says it stood up on its feet for a while, just like a man, and it reached out, grabbed the back of the car, lifted it up, tore it up, and then dropped it. She was terrified. They stayed in the car with this little baby. They never moved. And then the police took pictures of the car. The car had extremely large claw marks that no bear could have ever done.
Yeah, I know that.
It looked like it tore it up. Of course, the sheriff out here eventually wrote it off as we've got a rampant Rottweiler, and they killed the Rottweiler and so forth. But when you take my occurrence, other people's sightings during this period in time, and hers, there was something out here. It may still be out here. I don't know.
Sure it is. To be honest with you.
So no affiliation to possibly Bigfoot then, or?
I think that was too bold to be Bigfoot.
Okay. The hide and seek champion of the world.
well, jumping into the topic of the big stinker. There are a lot of distortions, from various sightings of it, and I believe that there's a lot of different looks of the Sasquatch. So, and I believe that the dog man concept, for me, I believe that it's probably a type of Sasquatch of some sort. Maybe it was, is
that a tie to Goat Man? Because we got Goat Man in Kentucky, so that's the only cryptid I know. Is Dog Man and Goat Man the same, or is that no?
Goat Man has horns.
Oh, has the horns? Okay.
So the other thing is,
I'm not into cryptids all that much yet. I'm open to it.
There are groups of people out there that 100% believe in that word skinwalker or werewolf. When I first had my radio show, I got threatened. I know somebody that did a little public radio show for years up here when he was going to college. He got threatened. When I was going to write my book on it, I got threatened. I had a gentleman that wrote several books about werewolves and skinwalkers who got threatened. Believe it or not, whether they're real or not, there is a group of people out there that believe that they're real, and they're going to shut you up if you actually do the research and you want to make it public.
Oh, yeah, they're going to. I've seen that. Censorship, the cancel culture.
Yeah,
censorship.
I have another friend that wants to actually is working out a trip, whatever you want, an investigation at the Skinwalker Ranch. So maybe over this next year, I may actually be going there. And we'll see.
I would love to go to Skinwalker Ranch.
I'd like to go too.
Absolutely love it. Being the scientist and reading the claims that came out of there from the scientific group after they released their paper, some of that is almost unbelievable.
Yeah.
But I would love to dig into that and really dive straight forward and go, okay, I want to sit out there in the middle of the night with my nice little tent by myself and see what happens.
Exactly. Even if something rips your head off, it's still worth it.
Yeah, I got my answers.
Did you get it on video? Is all I want to know. Is it on video?
But going back to the lizardmen and
Yes.
reptilians and so forth, do I think they're possible? Yes. I have a little bit of a question on it sometimes, because there's a difference between shape-shifting and evil and what you see in the mainstream claims. The first time that I visited the reptilian cases was the guy that, I don't remember his name now, but he wrote a whole book about how he interviewed a reptilian. And she was talking about all kinds of phenomenal things. She was coming out in the middle of the day and enjoying the sun because they don't have sun in the ground and all kinds of other things. And I'm thinking, this is so far-fetched that I can't really catch on to it. And that tends to be a lot of the UFO world when you're dealing with a lot of these cases. Abductions are real. Who knows? Reptilians could be real, or shapeshifters could be real. I believe that the grays are real because there's too many incidents through psychology and so forth that connect them. But it's that hair thin line. It's really hard to stand there and say, yes, there are 16 races and this is what they do. And without getting that tinfoil hat, I guess you could say, and putting it on.
I got a whole theory behind that, but I don't want to talk about it on this show. But I'm just going to plug this in because I don't plug it in. But if anybody wants to know more about Nephilims, EmilyMenshouse.org, look that up. I have the introduction. I'm actually going to be filming part 1 and 2 this week on that. With and honest, I go back to the Bible. That's my source. Everybody else has other sources they follow. So I'm not always right. I'm not always wrong. And then I always encourage everybody to study this stuff yourself, right? I think all of us here could, right?
Well, and dig up all the theology. It's amazing because when you start getting into all the religions and all the theologies,
yes,
you find these little links, and then you start going, okay, I see where they're coming from here. I see where they're coming from here. I see where they're coming from here. And you start painting this picture that makes you realize that no matter what religion you're in, these creatures, beings, God, angels, the demons, the devil, whatever you want to call them, they've been here since the beginning of time. And they're real. And they do crazy things, I guess you could say, that it's hard to explain. I always give this one quote, and everybody always looks at me funny, but I always tell everybody the same thing. I've had it since I was 16 years old and realized that I'm a part of this whole situation, and I don't know why. There is a war going on. There's a war between heaven and hell, good and evil, positive and negative, whatever you want to say. And every now and then, we're in the center of this, and very few people get caught in that war. And when you do, you start to realize that things aren't exactly the way we picture them. We're just living in a society that we want to believe is normal, and there's so many other things out there, if that makes sense.
that makes sense. And I honestly think too, the spiritual world is so big and so large at this point in time. If God really truly wanted us to see all of it, our minds couldn't wrap around it at all. It would scare us, actually, I think, in my
Well, it's fascinating because, and this is going to make me sound nuts, so everybody can laugh if they want to.
I accept nuts in my life.
When you have the great privilege of confronting these things, and you realize that you're dealing with what is the wrong side or the demon, and what is the right side or the angel, these things look at us so strangely. It's a curiosity sometimes. Even though they're fighting this war, it's a curiosity sometimes that we get caught in between because we're tools like everything else.
They look at us as the enemy just as much as we look at them as the enemy.
Or confused, like the term angel. Would anybody out there be surprised to tell you that an angel has no idea why I'm wearing this shirt today and why I spend time taking a shower or shaving, even though I haven't shaved today?
Because they knew that button was going to come undone. That's all I've got to say.
They don't comprehend that. They look and go, I have no idea why you're doing all of this.
They're naked. They're naked. It's the, what is it called? The beaches that are, you don't wear clothes. What is that people, the group of people that are nudist? They're nudists. They don't understand clothing whatsoever. There's a new documentary on Netflix if y'all want to watch. I watched the first 5 minutes. I was like, nope, enough with me on that. But it just came out a couple weeks ago. Real quick, Chris, because we're going to have to close down here. How can people find you and get to know you a lot better coming up? I know you have a radio show, podcast, and you're writing a book. And then really quickly, I know that this was delayed a little bit, but you mentioned having a show coming out, a documentary series, right?
Well, hopefully. We're still working on that. It was, we were in deals before COVID-19 hit. But I'm working on a unique idealism. And then idealism, hopefully, if we get the right people in it, whether they decide to use my ugly face or not, it's fine, is going to put a lot of what everybody claims to the test. We're going to be showing you things that on TV, hopefully, that are different than what you're used to seeing. So it's not your average ghost hunting show, paranormal show, Bigfoot hunting show, and so forth. It's more of a scientific mad lab show that says, okay, Greg here was out Bigfoot hunting and he found specific tools. So let's find out if we can define whether Bigfoot is real or not. Let's find out if we can define whether a spirit box is actually working. Let's see if we can define this. And if we find the science, you're going to see how we broke down all of that science and we brought it to you. This is what you're really getting. This is what we think we're getting. This is what you're really doing. This is what you think you're doing. And hopefully in that process, run into multiple times where we're saying, you know what, we have no idea what's going on. But it's cool.
That's awesome.
So people can follow you. Hold on, we're going to talk about the box here in a second. But people, this is your Facebook, Chris Houston 336. I like that you use 336, by the way, for the number. I don't know if you picked that out or not, but I'm a big Tesla fan. He did numbers with threes and things like that. But real quick, Greg, you threw up Katie Stafford because both of you, and I love Katie Stafford too. The
nanocom. But the point is what you were saying about your show concept. You know, how in the world does this little device literally talk to Burt Reynolds? Okay, literally talk to Johnny Ramone and others. And I'm going to go to Judy Garland. That's probably who I'll go to next week.
Oh,
and
can we do this live? Can we do it live? A Judy Garland live? Oh my goodness! Please.
You think that talking to celebrities is amazing? You should see his large box and one of these days I'm going to record it. You should see the conversations that we have gotten from that large box. I can honestly tell you there are situations with that. With his ink box that I cannot explain, but I can tell you that
I got an ink box right back there. Actually,
those claims that the person died there. Yep, they died there. It's positive. They carried on a full conversation with me.
So your show concept is amazing because you can take something as simple, though maybe not so simple, as this device, and you can break something like that down. And I think I'm looking forward to it. I hope it all comes together because I think the idea that you have there is actually fantastic. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and we've got some unique names that are popping in and out there. We're even going to be taking psychic mediums and putting them to the test. I've met some very good ones that I believe in.
I know some very good ones. Very good.
So we're going to be doing a lot of tests and going, okay, here it is. Here's the real paranormal, guys. You spend all the time over here in the mainstream, but here's the real paranormal. So let's see what works, what doesn't work, what you can use, what you can't use. And I think we need it. You know, we've just spent the past 20 years seeing the same thing.
Well, I'm going to just throw this in here really quick. I am talking to the New Yorker Hotel up in New York, Manhattan, and I'm hoping to get the Tesla room for 2 nights this summer. Cool. Who wants to go?
I'm in.
I'll go.
Message me. Let's do it. Everybody, like, their rooms are super cheap there, but I'm sure the Tesla room is going to be a lot more. But I was like, if I can get it for 2 nights and then just rent out a room because I'll be there for 4 days. I have family up there. I'm going to visit them too while I'm there. But Tesla, I didn't even know. I heard of Tesla, obviously, but that's something else. They don't teach you in grade school about Tesla. It's all about Thomas Edison. And they're changing history, and we have to research all this stuff yourself. You have to look this up, and Tesla was amazing, like probably amazing. And guess who he gave his stuff to? at the end, that some chests and some of his trunks are missing, was John Trump, Donald Trump's uncle.
No, there's
three major chests are missing right now.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of research on Tesla. His theory on the X particle is absolutely phenomenal. And I think it's what got him shut down. The X particle is very extraordinary. And he believed at the end of that all of this energy you see around you, I can reach up here and grab this right here. If I could harness what I just grabbed, that energy you can't see, I could power a city block.
Yeah.
And he had proved that he was doing that, and then he got shut down. He had proved that he was using energy that was coming out of nowhere.
Well, most of our big energy units come from Tesla. It's not Edison. Edison did the light bulb, but Tesla, like from what I've read and what I've researched, and then there's the show, The Tesla Files on Amazon Prime. There's two seasons, I think. I watched them all. Like I binge watched that this past summer. But I probably need to go back and look at it. But a fantastic man, so much to the point that the government came in and swiped him of everything. So if the government comes in and takes everything from him, there's something that you need to look at with that. So
thing.
Okay, go ahead.
One thing. Watch my eyes. Let me know. Am I a reptilian? Am I a rep? No, it doesn't look like it. Okay.
Yeah. You gotta go like this a couple of times, see if you
should. Wouldn't be a reptilian. Oh well.
No, but I'll tell you, Lindsey Graham is one, from my opinion, after watching this past summer, and some people seen it. I can't find the video. I should have recorded it then on my phone, and I didn't. And I watched it. I
remember
live.
watching the video that was out there, and it does. I gotta tell you that she looks not human at one point, definitely.
Well, he was like, I watched this live and I'm like, what is going on with him? He looks so weird. And then his eyes went from like, they looked oval, then they went to the lizard, straight up and down. And even the host of that show on Newsmax, this was live. It was in June or July. It was summer. And he's like, his eyes were really weird. And I can't find the video now. I watched that live on YouTube.
His real name is Lindsay.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for being a guest tonight. We truly appreciate you. Obviously, come back on in the near future too, especially when you get hopefully this documentary series coming up. You're writing a book too that's taking some time to release. That's going to be truly interesting. But the radio show, you do have a podcast, Paranormal Truth and Reality. Is that starting back up too, or?
Yeah, it's going to be running this summer.
Awesome.
We took a pause from a lot of that for a little while, and I walked away.
COVID put it all in pause.
Oh yeah, and the rest of mainstream and so forth. And I really wanted to get back into speaking, which you guys have seen me at a lot of different conferences. Pay attention to my page this year. I'll be jumping back and forth and doing a lot of speaking, a lot of teaching. I'm always at 2 conferences a year here at the Ohio State University and one at Michigan State University. I always speak there because the students get a kick out of talking about the paranormal. And then hopefully, with all these restrictions lifting, we'll be able to get back on TV and a lot of other things. It's been a rat road race of crazy stuff the past year and a half.
Man, I'm looking forward to following you, Chris.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to, hopefully, Chris, that we can do something together because you're not that far from me. So, yeah, it'd be awesome. I talk to so many people, which, Chris, I'm sure you do too, that are close to you, but you don't ever physically meet, or it takes a while to meet. So I'm breaking out of the box as soon as these... I'm ready to meet people and go to these conventions. The only convention I ever went to was Mid-South in Louisville. So I'm ready to go out and meet some of these people I've talked to for the last year and a half, especially with COVID, because everything's gone to social media. But I truly appreciate you being a guest on the show. We support you. Thank you so much. I know you have not been feeling well, and thank you for pulling through tonight. You didn't have to by any means, but thank you so much for being a guest. We pray that you feel better. And next week we'll be live again at 9 p.m. Friday night. But starting in May, we're going to be going to Monday nights at 8 p.m. So times and days are going to change in May. But next week we're going to have Rob Yokes. He is the founder of Full Spectrum Universe, and he does a lot of conspiracy stuff too. So we'll be live next week here on the Manifest Network and simulcasting to YouTube and Twitch. And hopefully LinkedIn, because LinkedIn said I got a message from LinkedIn. They said give us 72 hours. So hopefully live on LinkedIn too. So thank you everybody for watching and viewing. We appreciate you. We love all of you. Please like, share, and follow. And we will see you all next week at 9 p.m. Eastern time with Rob Yokes from Full Spectrum Universe. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thanks again, Chris.
Thank you.